Welcome to the AI+HI Project. I'm Nichol Bradford, SHRM's executive in residence for AI+HI. Thanks for joining us. Each week, we sit down with visionaries from business, tech, and HR to provide deep insights, actionable strategies, and practical advice for harnessing the transformative power of artificial intelligence and human ingenuity. This week, we're diving into HR innovation, startup acceleration, and the future of workplace technology with Hadeel Al-Tashi, manager of the Workplace Innovation Lab at SHRM Labs. Hadeel, welcome to the AI+HI Project.
Hi, Nicole. Thanks so much for having me.
I really appreciate you being here. And what we love to do with our guests is we really like to start with their journey. So, can you tell us what led you to focus on HR tech innovation and venture investment at SHRM Labs? How did you come to this place?
Yeah, great question. I am not an HR practitioner. My background is not in HR at all. My career, Nicole, has always been at the intersection of technology, innovation, and social impact. I've worked in nonprofit, startups, venture capital firm, and led a corporate innovation lab, giving me a broad perspective on how ideas take shape and how they scale. I joined SHRM around the pandemic to help build the innovation lab and the venture capital arm, and to launch key programs like the Workplace Tech Accelerator. COVID, as you know, was a pivotal time for HR. Suddenly, HR got into the spotlight, and organizations recognized that people are the core of businesses, of every business, for that matter. And HR technology plays a critical role in that, in helping businesses navigate through workplace challenges. And that excited me. I love a good challenge, and I was very excited to join SHRM and lead SHRM Labs and support, build this innovation lab and build this community of HR technologies. And that's what truly excites me. SHRM has deep connections in the HR community. We gain real time insights into what organizations truly need, allowing us to support startups that are solving for the right problems.
That's great. Can you, for our audience, just tell them a little bit about the program that you just finished recruiting for, the Workplace Tech Accelerator?
Yeah. So our Workplace Tech Accelerator program is an 18-week long program where we invite a very small cohort of companies to participate in. Um, they're all future of work HR technologies that we are very much excited about. And the essence of the program, Nicole, is we help them understand the pain points of HR. We connect them with leaders in the space so they are truly continuing to innovate and enhance their solutions to address these real problems in the workplace.
I can imagine having your finger on the pulse of what companies are experiencing really helps you look at the startups that apply to the program. Can you tell us a little bit about what are the key factors that you look at when you're considering selecting a company for the program?
Yeah. So SHRM is a mission-oriented organization. At the end of the day, we serve our members. And so our members' needs are the most important thing when we are evaluating these applications. So we always align that whole evaluation and selection process with our members' needs and priorities. So that always comes on top. And then after that, Nicole, it's very much like any accelerator program or other venture capital firms, right? We look at the problem, we look at the solution. Does the solution address a critical HR problem? As I mentioned before, does it align with our mission and where we're seeing solutions could potentially be. And then we also look at the traction. Do they have customers? Who are their customers? What sort of impact have they made within their customer base? And then we look at the technology itself. How unique is it? How are they using, how are they leveraging and using AI, data automation and all of these things. And we look at these tools even further, and look, are they using it ethically and responsibly? Are there certain things that we just need to be aware about there? And then, the most important thing is also the team, right? The founding team who's on the board. Are these team members that are going to truly stick around for a long time and continue to execute and make an impact in the space? Or are there any like potential red flags that, could prevent them from making that impact in the future?
One of the things I'm really curious about is what were the biggest pain points that our our membership were having? Like, what were the, because I think it's a really exciting time to be in innovation, especially with, AI and blockchain and like all of the things that are coming in. And so we're definitely going to talk about the companies that were selected, but I'm also really curious, what were the problems that you knew going into this cycle were some of the things that companies and members were facing?
Yeah, that's a and there's a lot of it, Nicole. Where do I start? But, essentially, the biggest thing is the talent, right? How do you get the right talent? How do you upscale, rescale? How do you move talent within the organization? Um, um, Employee experience is huge. The same way you as a consumer, you want things to be customizable for you, right? And that will enhance your experience as a consumer. What does that mean for you as an employee with all sorts of benefits that are available to you? How do we ensure that me, and you, mom, for example, will have the resources that I need to thrive in the workplace, and someone else that has other priorities at our different stage in the workplace has the benefits that they need to scale and thrive in the workplace. And productivity is another big one that's on top of mind of a lot of HR leaders. With tight budgets, how do you ensure your workforce is productive? They're operating in the most efficient ways possible. And so there's definitely a lot, and we resort to the research teams reports that they put out there, and what they're listening from our members. And we talked internally as well to different team members that are interacting with our members at the individual level, but also at the enterprise level, and just understand from them what are the biggest pain points. And like I said, Nicole, there's a lot going in. But we try to focus on what are the top ones, and I think I've mentioned those.
That's so interesting. One of the things that we see on the research side too is exactly what you said. It's like the companies are trying to find talent. They're trying to understand how to be more productive. They're really interested in the employee experience and making that better so that it ties to enabling more innovation or also enhancing productivity. So it's very interconnected, and I love our research team. They do such good work. And so now flipping to the founder side and the company side, also from your vantage point, because you have this incredible vantage point of seeing both on the demand side what companies really need and then also seeing what founders are creating and building. What would you say would be a common misconception that a HR tech founder has about building a company in this space? So when you're looking at the applications in the batch, what are the things that you think that they might miss?
Yeah, it's so funny. We've been running this program for the past 4 years, and, I feel when we were evaluating the applications for this year, there's a lot more AI startups that I've ever seen. But I want to emphasize that, AI alone is not a selling point, right? AI is not a tool. Is a tool, sorry, and it's not a value proposition. And so, just because you stick an AI to your solution, whether it actually is an AI solution or not, it doesn't make it all of a sudden super attractive for employers. And I feel like sometimes founders tend to focus a little bit more on that rather than the actual HR problem that they are solving. On that note too, I would. I feel sometimes, I look at an application or look at the solution, it's like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. The technology sounds very interesting and complex, and it does X, Y, Z, but there's just some nuances that are missing in terms of, compliance. How does that, integrate with the different HR workflows that are already in place? What does that mean for employee engagement, diversity, inclusion, and so forth? Like, I feel sometimes some founders are just too excited about the technology itself, and they're not necessarily focusing on the impact or the problem that they are truly, solving for.
Yes, I see that too. As you know, I have a venture fund and I invest in what we call human potential technologies, of which HR tech is one subset of it. And I also have seen that the number of companies that just add AI to it, and really it's kind of a chatbot, and really missing like what is the core problem that needs to be solved. Because at the end of the day, we're going to get to a place where AI is just electricity. It's just electricity. It's kind of like a while ago when at the beginning of this of the that first internet boom, where everyone just sort of added, um, you know, uh, added, the word web or something like that to it, and it didn't really. It's sort of like adding the word electricity when you buy a lamp. And so understanding the core problem is also the biggest misconception that I see also coming in from founders. Like, are they excited about the technology and then just searching for a problem? Or are they really subject matter experts? Do they deeply understand a problem? Are they able to solve it entirely for like
Mhm.
one client in a way that delights that client, and then they move on from there or not. It's interesting to hear you say that about the companies that we've seen too. Okay, let's turn to the companies that we did select. Let's start with Bytes. So Bytes helps companies create bite-sized, mobile-friendly employee training content. Tell us about that company and why you selected it.
Absolutely. So, Bytes is a social media inspired platform, and it was designed to streamline training and knowledge sharing. The way that their clients describe them, Nicole, is essentially if an LMS and TikTok had a baby, it would be Bytes. So it looks and feels like a TikTok, super engaging. What was really impressive about their solution is the impact. So it only takes 14 minutes for any organization to create content, whereas a traditional organization, it can take them, well, months, and it's super expensive. Whereas through the platform, you can do it instantly. And then in terms of engagement, they have 95% in engagement with their content. So we believe that solutions like Byte, and specifically Byte, they are changing the whole game of micro learning, and this is extremely fundamental for frontline workers. They work with people who are deskless, who don't have access to a laptop, and having that experience, having that easy access to content that you can get through WhatsApp, through text is just super fundamental, and can help with organizations making sure that their workforce is upskilled and as you can imagine, there's so much impact that can happen as a result of that.
Yes, and the age of AI that we're moving into, the ability to upskill and reskill people quickly in a format that works for them is going to be really essential for the future of work. So I love that you picked that one. Let's move on to Refresh Software. They're tackling employee experiencing by unifying benefits, tools, and communication into one platform. Tell us about Refresh.
Yeah. So, the problem that we're hearing over and over again, Nicole, when we're talking to different HR leaders and executives, is that the employee experience is fragmented. And honestly, we're not just hearing it from the HR practitioners, but also employees. HR has multiple, so many applications and tools for benefits, engagement, communications. And what's so unique about Refresh is they are, think of them as a super app, and it brings all these tools together. So you, as the HR manager, you only have that one platform that you can manage all of these things. And then for me as the employee, I can only access that one super app that's completely white labeled, and it looks and feels like my organization's brand. And I can access the tools that I need that's customizable just to me. And I kind of mentioned this earlier, like for me as a new mom, maybe there's certain benefits that I want to see, whereas someone else who is in a different stage in their lives, they probably want to see other benefits that speak to their needs and their priorities in their lives. And so that's what excited us about Refresh. And what's unique about them is they work with frontline workers specifically. And again, these workers, they don't have all the time in the world to access and log in to tens of platforms, and they just have having one place that they can go to for everything that they need is just going to drive efficiency.
Yes, and one of the things that I noticed when I looked at when I looked at their website and went through everything was just, I love the UI UX. One of the things that often happens is that you'll have, even with tech companies, you'll have their external product is beautiful and well designed, but the internal products look like they're from 1990. And so Refresh just has this really great UI UX interface that, treats an employee as well as a customer. And so I really thought that was special about them. Yeah. Okay, so the third is transcripts, and that's a blockchain for employment verification and credentials. And I'm really curious about that because a lot of times when people think about blockchain, they think about crypto, and this is so much different than that.
Yeah. So blockchain introduces a new level of security and efficiency in the workplace and workforce management. It streamlines verification processes, reduces fraud, and empowers employees to own their data. What got us really excited about transcripts is there aren't a lot of solutions that are in the space that make the impact that they have done with their customers. And I want to give you just an example of the impact that they have made. So, for one of their enterprise customers, and maybe let me give you some context there. You as an employee, so I'm Hadeel, I work at SHRM. If I want to apply for a loan, HR needs to contact and connect with the bank, verify that I work there, verify my salary, and all of that fun stuff. Now, if SHRM shares that information with a bad actor for whatever reason, by mistake, things happen, SHRM could be fined significantly, And so what transcripts does is it allows one employees to initiate and expedite that whole process so you're not waiting on uh, Jessica from HR to, process that, and she has a million other things to do, and God knows if she'll have time to do it before the end of the day or not. And it just streamlines that whole process, but also, that liability, I as employee, I take that away from the employer, and so now my employer is not necessarily liable it going to any bad actors anymore. So transcripts is very innovative in the space, and we're very excited to have them part of the cohort. And going back to the impact that they've made for one of their customers, they were spending over almost 300 hours a month doing income and employment verifications. Through transcripts, they were able to reduce that number to an hour a month. Like, can you imagine now HR professionals are not necessarily doing these mundane tasks and repetitive tasks, but rather have the time to do more strategic work in the workplace.
Well, and also, really allowing HR professionals to do the coaching and development and all of the other things that, many people who come into this function, like that's really what they wanted to do. They wanted to help people.
Mhm.
And employee and salary verification is not what they had in mind when they decided to become an HR professional often.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, in general, I'd like to switch to overall workplace innovation. We've talked about some of the things that you've seen. What are some of the things that you would like to see that just aren't being developed, haven't been developed yet, or haven't shown up yet, but are real workplace problems that need innovation?
That's an interesting question. I think, and I feel like there are technologies out there that maybe touch on this in a little bit one way or another. But I think the big one really is skills-based hiring. I feel like there's a huge opportunity for that. And I have yet to see more technology in that space to address this big problem. But I think, as we're thinking about moving forward and the trends that we would like to see in the space, um, anything that can help HR, do more of the strategic work and less of that admin, repetitive, boring task is always going to be a plus. Anything around more of AI solutions around well-being and personalization, I think is going to be really helpful. Anything that's predictive and not reactive is going to be really huge in the future, Nicole. And as we talk about AI and we have come across solutions in this space, um, you know. Ethical AI is very important in this space, and so I'd love to see more. Maybe there will be a lot more demand for white box AI versus the black box AI of here this person got that rating or this person needs to be hired without providing the explanation like why did you come to that decision, right? So I think there's a lot more opportunity for technology to um, um, invest more in this space.
And one of the things that I've been thinking about too is, the employees and employers have there's a bit of a social contract, to use sort of like a social neuroscience and psychology standpoint. So there's a social contract, and sometimes it's implicit, sometimes it's explicit. It sounds like the company mission and some other things, and certainly leadership and culture sets the tone. But the mechanism of the social contract, I think the mechanism, because it's across the employee life cycle, I think HR in many ways um, manages the mechanism of the social contract, and so I think that um, responsible AI is going to live in HR. It's going to be enabled by IT, but it's going to live in HR because it's about what you said, the white box AI. Am I being treated fairly? Am I being supported? Do I understand how I'm being evaluated? And so that's everything from onboarding, So recruitment, hiring, onboarding, benefits, what gets approved, what doesn't get approved, promotions, performance management, like that whole employee life cycle. And because AI is going to show up in the tools that are being used across it, even though there might be mission and culture that comes from the top, the tone from the top, plus the culture across the organization, HR is really holding the social contract through the tools that impact the employee life cycle. So one of the things that I'm expecting, one of my predictions, this is not a SHRM prediction, this is a Nichol prediction, is I think that the HR function is going to own responsible AI within the organization.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that.
Yeah. So, okay, let's talk about how HR startups struggle and when they're struggling to scale, because it's quite hard actually to get enterprise contracts to get in there. What are some of the common pitfalls that you've seen the early stage companies have, and how should they navigate them?
Yeah. So the biggest thing in HR is really understanding the HR buyer, and this is what we really focus the Accelerator program on, helping these founders and truly understand that buyer journey, who are the decision makers, who are the potential champions, and in HR it is very unclear and depending on, and then there really isn't one method or process that applies to all, and I think that's just the challenge of the HR industry as a whole and selling to HR. But that's a big challenge. I think the other thing is, over-engineering the product. Sometimes they invest too much on, nice to haves and not focusing on, like, the true needs of the HR, function and profession. I think in the estimation of, integration as well, HR has so many tools, as is, and your tools need to very well integrate in what already exists, and that's another big one. And I would say the last one maybe here is ignoring change management. It's so important. You have this amazing solution. Help HR and businesses and employers understand how they can easily adopt your solution, and how can you provide more support and training to these teams so they can best utilize your solution, so they can see the outcomes that you're claiming that they will see.
And how do you see HR innovation evolving over the next 5 years? And sort of in what role will investors have in shaping that future? So how can, we via SHRM Labs, me via my fund, and other people who are investing in this space, how can we support that innovation for HR?
Yeah. I think we talked about what we're going to see in the future, in terms of what are the priorities. And I think VCs and investment firms, they are going to play a critical role in accelerating the types of solutions that are going to solve real businesses. I think investors are going to seek a balance between the technology and the impact, the human impact that these solutions are going to make within the organizations, to like ensure that the AI solution augments rather than replaces the HR decision making function. Because I really feel like we were never going to get to a place where AI replaces HR. It's always going to augment, and support that HR and empower that HR function.
I agree. I agree. So, final question. And I'm going to ask it from two different perspectives because you have this unique vantage point where you both see what the HR leaders need and what their pain points are. And then you also, have just reviewed hundreds of founders and companies. So, for an HR leader who is following our conversation and they're reviewing a lot of different technologies, what is the piece of advice you would give them about navigating the future of HR innovation and how to know what they're looking at when they're looking at potential solutions.
Yeah, and it's a crowded space, right, Nicole? There's definitely a lot of noise, and this is where I highly recommend HR professionals to learn, to tap into, um, whatever resources is available to help them understand, what their needs are within their organizations, help understand what types of solutions they're looking for, that could make an impact within the organization, but, don't shy away. Technology is your friend, and it is supposed to empower you in the workplace and, help you take that seat, in that decision making table and, propose the solutions that truly will impact the people within your organization. But definitely learn more. There's a lot of things evolving very quickly, but don't be overwhelmed. I think your podcast does a great job, Nicole, at like educating. You bring in different experts, in this space to talk about different areas that HR professionals need to learn about when it comes to innovation and AI and all of that. But highly encourage, professionals to expand your knowledge, learn more about what tools you can put in place to understand your needs or people needs within your organization, and don't be afraid to listen to demos and learning more about the solutions that are out there. And I think SHRM is a great partner in that, in supporting them understand what they need to listen for and what are some things that they need to keep in mind.
Yes. And one of the pieces of advice that I give them is tell them to really understand what their problems are, because if they understand what their problems are, then and they don't know it intimately. And I love what you said about really, also knowing having the tools that allow you to really understand your problem, because if they don't, then the vendor shapes their problem versus them saying, "Here's my problem," and, and then using that as the lens to decide the vendor. And so that's my advice to them too. And then, okay, so for HR tech founders listening, what's the biggest piece of advice you would give to them?
Yeah, my biggest advice is listen to the HR professionals. They are your partners in this space. So listen to them. Make sure that you're solving real problems and solving them in the right way. And you will not know. And this is particularly true for a lot of these technologists and innovators that don't have HR experience. There's that disadvantage. And so I would say open your ears, listen to what HR professionals need in their workplace, and make sure that you are truly solving a real HR problem.
Excellent. 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 Okay, so that's it for this week's episode. A big thank you to Hadeel for sharing your insights on HR innovation, AI, and the future of workplace technology.
Thanks for having me, Nicole.
And thank you so much for coming. And before we wrap up, everyone in the audience, I encourage you to follow the AI+HI Project wherever you enjoy your podcast. And if you found today's conversation valuable, please take a moment to comment, leave a review, and spread the word. It really makes a difference. And finally, you can find all of our episodes on our website at shrm.org/AIHI. Thanks for joining the conversation, and we will catch you next time. SHRM.